All right, family, welcome back to the Rotator Cuff Expert. I'm Dr. Orcutt. So this is part 2 of how to pick an orthopedic surgeon until you do your shoulder surgery, specifically your rotator cuff surgery. So we went through 3 steps last time, or 3 ideas. The idea of how long have you been an orthopedic surgeon, a question to ask, 2, 3, 4 years at least, 50, maybe too many, somewhere in between. I would say between 2 and 20 is probably most of us anyway, but that would be a good range to decide the experience. And lots of times, as we get older, we kind of narrow our focus down of what we really like. So if you got a 20 years of experience orthopedic surgeon, and they're doing rotator cuff repairs, most likely they like to do them, and that means actually probably they're pretty good at that. So that's the key thing. So 1, how many years of service? 2, how many do they do a week? Or a month, let's say a month. So we talked about 8, 10, 12 a month. That would be good because that means you're doing enough to be good at it. If you do 1 a week or 1 a month, you're probably not good enough at it. There's an interesting study, not specifically in shoulders, but in knee replacements, hip replacements, if you don't do more than, so many a year or a month, you're probably not good enough and you probably shouldn't do any. And I think that's the same as rotator cuff repairs. If you don't do very many or do occasionally, you probably shouldn't do them. You should have someone else in your practice or someone else in your community do your rotator cuff repairs for you. Okay, so 1, years of service. 2, how many do a week or a month. 3, are you fellowship trained? Sort of important, maybe, maybe not, but certainly something to ask and know about. That's important. And 4, we talk about reviews, right? So today in this day and age, we have lots and lots of reviews. Are reviews important? They are important. We have to be careful. And just like if we talk about Google reviews and Amazon reviews, there's, the ones that are 5 stars, maybe you don't really care about. Ones that are 0 or 1 stars, maybe you don't care about, because those are the 2 extremes. The 5 stars, maybe by my mom. The 1 stars, maybe by my chief enemy. So we want to look at the 3 and 4 star reviews and see what they say, because those are important. So if you have a surgeon that's 4, 4.5, 5, that's probably pretty good. If they're 5s, it's probably not real. If there's 1s, you probably should run away. So it's important. Again, it's a part of the process. It's not the only thing you should look at, but it's one more thing you look at. And I'm surprised when I have patients come to see me and they say, yeah, I came to see you because you have 4.5 on Google ratings. Well, okay, but that's interesting and that's good and that's something important, but probably not the most important thing. So one more thing to put in. Okay, so when we started the first video, we talked about what is important or what you think might be important that actually may not be important at all. Now I have to be careful with this, okay? Because I am not interested in making people upset at me. I'm not interested in making a broad brush statement. And so this may make people a little mad at me, people who are in specific parts of this country or institutions. Okay, so here it is. So I've looked online a bunch of times and people say, I want to make sure that my surgeon was trained in an Ivy League school. Okay, so, and that's not a bad thing. And so depending on what your training is, but the most important thing that you have to understand is that people who are super smart and have really good brains may not be very good with their hands. Now, there's exceptions to the rule, of course, but we have to be careful. So when we look at orthopedic training, 1, we say, okay, orthopedic training, so you have to be a certain level of high school to go to college, right? You do. So, and you have to have a certain level in college so you can go to med school. And that's a pretty big leap from college to med school. It's not easy. Lots of people try. Many people don't get into med school. What people may not know, so when you make the leap from medical school to orthopedics, specifically orthopedics is one of the most demanding, the most competitive specialties in medicine. So if you know that we have self-selected people who are really smart, and I don't think this about myself, but just in general, people are really smart because they got into med school, because they're pretty smart if you get into med school, and then the cream of the crop of med school, those people who can get into orthopedic surgeons. So we are already selecting pretty darn smart people in orthopedic surgeons. Now, not everybody. There's certain, of course, there's There's exceptions to the rule. But in general, people who are an orthopedic surgeon are pretty smart, pretty dedicated, pretty hardworking. Otherwise, you can be smart, but you have to be able to get through the residency to become an orthopedic surgeon. So if we self-select even more so, and we say, I only want someone who went to Harvard for the orthopedic residency, or I only went to Hopkins for orthopedic residency, we have to be careful what we're asking for, because most likely people who are going to Harvard or Johns Hopkins or Mayo Clinic or wherever, they are probably more research oriented than technical skills oriented. This is a broad brush, a general statement, but I only say this because people who say, I got to have someone who went to Harvard, that may not be the best thing. It may not be a bad thing, but it may not be the best thing. Personally, in my life, some super, super smart people sometimes are not really great surgeons. They may be great brain, they may be great in logic, great in research, but they may not be technically great. So just to keep that in mind. So maybe you don't want that guy. Maybe you do, but just think about that before you decide that that's the only way you're going to go is a guy or gal who went to an Ivy League school for fellowship, residency, whatever. So anyway, that's the one caveat. You may think you want it, but you might not want it. Just think about that. Okay, and then lastly, probably one of the most important things is, do you like them? Do you like that person? Do they spend time with you, talking to you? Do you understand what they're saying? Do they explain things well? Do they seem like they care? Because lots of people say, I don't care about my surgeon. As long as he's good with his hands, I don't really care. What I'm telling you is you don't have to choose like that. You can have it all. You can have someone who's smart, who does a lot of shoulder surgery, who is caring and kind and will talk to you. That is not that rare. It may be not common, but it's not that rare. I know personally many surgeons who are good technically, who are smart, who know what they're doing surgically, and who care and will talk with you and will speak to you and will help you get through it. And that's super important, because the time that a surgeon spends with you before surgery is the most time you're ever going to have with a surgeon. Because once you have surgery, if you don't have time to talk about what you do before surgery, that surgeon is certainly not going to have time to talk about what happened after surgery. And if something goes wrong, because almost always something is not perfect, the shoulder's a little stiff, there's a little stitch, there's a little drainage or swelling, it hurts, you don't know, you need a surgeon who can guide you through those waters. And if you have a surgeon who doesn't seem to care, who doesn't seem to explain things, or who doesn't really have time for you before surgery, they're not going to have time for you after surgery. So anyway, so the key things we said in this episode, the 3 key things is, do they have good grades in health grades and other Google, whatever. So it's important, somewhat important, something you have to look at. 2, do you like them? Would you like to talk with them? Would you like to have a conversation with them? Would you like maybe them to meet your brother-in-law, your sister-in-law, your mom, or your dad, whatever? And lastly, if you want a Ivy League trained all the way through, think about what that might mean for their technical skills. And actually for the bedside manner, maybe too. Just depends. Anyway, I appreciate your time. Please, comments, questions, please leave them below. Again, I have no disrespect for people who have gone through higher education. I used to work at Yale, but that doesn't mean anything. We just need to actually look at the person who's going to do our surgery and make sure they have the experience, make sure they have experience in time, in years of experience, make sure they have experience in what's important, what they do, what the rotator cuff is, how many times they do this, make sure they have maybe a fellowship, make sure they maybe have some pretty good grades in the grading sources on the internet, and make sure you like them. This is a long journey. Rotator cuff surgery is not a one and done, thank you very much, here you go. Rotator cuff surgery is a long process, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, 14 weeks, 16 weeks, half a year. So make sure the person you're going to commit to is going to commit to you. Anyway, have a great night. Thank you so much for listening. Comments, questions down below, and I will see you soon.